Regarding the initial statement of President Trump that he will not interfere in other countries' matters, his statements have been very aggressive towards other countries about Mexico and Canada and Greenland and so on. On one hand, probably the whole world is celebrating the fact that a dictator is removed. But on the other hand, this is a very dangerous precedent. Well, Venezuela is not a major player in the drug trafficking, so that's clear.
Hello, sir. Thank you for joining us for this interview. I would like to first start by asking you what do you make of the current situation in Venezuela, particularly the US military strikes that led to the capture of President Nicolas Maduro. Along with his wife, they are being tried in US. How do you read the development both politically and strategically?
Oh, I mean, it's mm, regarding the initial statement of President Trump that he will not interfere in other countries' matters, that was obviously surprising. On the other hand, from the very beginning of his mandate, he's been very I mean, his statements have been very aggressive towards other countries about Mexico and Canada and Greenland and so on. In the case of Venezuela, things are more specific because U.S. Does have a very real interests there and also problems, and that obviously the security advisors and people of Donald Trump have used to convince him to intervene. I mean, it's on one hand, probably the whole world is celebrating the fact that a dictator is removed. But on the other hand, this is a very dangerous precedent. It sends a very dangerous message also across the world. And from European point of view, it's sort of a justification also for what Putin is doing in Ukraine. So it's a warring situation, and I just hope that it will not escalate in a military terms, and some solution will be found.
So soon after these images and videos of US strikes surfaced, a larger question began to dominate the debate. What was the primary motivation behind these actions? Was it restoring the democracy in Venezuela, cracking down on alleged narco trafficking network, or was control over Venezuela's vast oil resources the central factor? We have gotten some idea from the statement of US President and his administration. What do you really think about this situation? Like, what was the central motive behind this?
Well, Venezuela is not a major player in the drug trafficking, so that's clear. So that couldn't be a main motivation. It could be a main excuse, but not a main motivation. Also, if it is about drug trafficking, recently Trump pardoned the Honduras president who was sentenced for 45 years for drug-related crimes. So clearly that's not the reason. Obviously, restoring democracy is also not a major um, uh, motivation because we see that the, um, the, the, the the recognized president and the leader of the opposition in Venezuela are not involved and not even mentioned at all in the whole process. So clearly one of the things that Trump mentioned, and it is linked to the motivation, is control of oil resources. We were seeing that over the recent years, Venezuela was developing very close relationships with Russia and with China, and these are two countries that um, create tension and serious problems for America, and this is probably a serious motivation to reduce and to cut the ties between Venezuela and China mainly, but also Russia. I mean, here we can remember the Cuban crisis from the past when that there are certain analogies. I mean, not by placing military power in Venezuela that could attack U.S., but through presence, through interest in to economic interests, but also supply of weapons and so on. So, if we have to look for motivation, geopolitical motivation, it is around Russia and China mainly. Of course, there is something else that the popularity of Trump is declining domestically and internationally is very low anyway. So he needs some kind of showcase action, which is a very sort of a perfect Hollywood case to sort of establish his position of a strong man on the international arena.
So what impact do you foresee from these actions by US on global energy market and oil prices in coming days, especially at the time when supply chains are already under pressure due to conflicts and sanctions elsewhere?
Yes, supply is under pressure, but what we're seeing in recent months and years even is that the oil markets are somehow adapting to uncertainty. And this is, we can see how oil prices are not that seriously moved by conflicts, including conflicts in oil-rich and oil exporting zones. And if we look at the first reaction of the oil markets, the Brent oil price has declined a little bit this morning. So one theory is, well, Venezuela holds the largest proven oil reserves in the world. These oil reserves have been very badly managed, so more oil will flood the market and prices of oil will decline. On the other hand, this is not easy because the infrastructure of the oil industry in Venezuela is in a very bad shape. It can't be just turned on and increased. So it will take years and huge investments, which there is a big question mark whether the promised American companies by Trump will really engage, because Venezuela remains very unstable a place. It's not very clear what the regime in the future will be, how, to what extent US will control the regime there. So I assume that in short term there will not be a great impact. In a bit longer term, it is quite possible that production in Venezuela will increase. The market, the global market is oversupplied anyway at the moment. That could lead to decline of the oil price. which will have very interesting impact on geopolitics around the world, because the war in Ukraine is funded mainly from oil revenues for Russia. Any decline of oil price will hit additionally the economy and the budget of Russia. That will weaken its position in Ukraine. That's a very interesting thing. The other thing that we could speculate what will happen with the energy transition. I mean, some people might say, well, lower low oil price will make internal combustion engine more attractive. I don't think so, because the mobile revolution, electric cars, two and three wheel vehicles, but also heavy transport. This is really a revolution which is not driven by the price of oil. It is driven by innovation and by fierce competition. So what I'm expecting is that it will not be affected at all if it's a big if the oil price declines as a result of the actions of US in Venezuela.
Sir, in the longer term, though you have touched upon this topic, in the longer term, if we talk about, US has sort of said that we will send American companies to Venezuela to repair the broken system. In the longer term, if we talk about, sir, do you think it will lead to significantly boost the production of oil and push down prices down? Because analysts are saying so. And if this is true, then it will. Do you think it will lead to more oil in the market and prices coming down, according to you?
In a longer term, I think yes, because Venezuela is a member of OPEC. So, and it could follow as a member of OPEC the decisions of OPEC. However, if US is controlling the government or has a very high level of influence on the government of Venezuela, Venezuela will simply not follow the decisions of OPEC, or will influence them towards uh, bigger production, because on one hand, Venezuela needs this income. So they would like to, at the moment, they are producing, what about 1 million barrels a day. In the past, they were generating up to 3.5. So they might say, well, this is the benchmark. We would want to go back to 3.5. So this increase will have a massive impact on the oil price. I mean, already one of the Russian oligarchs, Oleg Deripaska, he said that, well, with these positions, US could keep the price of oil under $50. And his point was that Russia has to think very seriously how to change its entire economic system. So from this point of view of Russia, not only as a country in war, but also as one of the main oil and gas players in the world, it's interesting to to hear this warning. But of course, oil price is a result of many, many factors. So everything that we would say is kind of a speculation and different scenarios. There is, of course, another factor in the oil price, which I mentioned earlier. This is the electrification of transport. The electrification of transport already has removed probably about 1 or 2% of the expected oil demand in the world, which already we can assume that it is one of the factors that keeps the price of oil relatively down. The electrification of transport is expanding very, very fast, and as a result of that, transport is the main user of oil products. we will see decline in demand for oil, but at the same time increase, not overnight, but over the next year or several years, increase of production in Venezuela. So that will be a very interesting dynamic to follow. My bet would be on midterm decline of oil price, which will not affect, however, the decline of the internal combustion engine.
So, though you mentioned about the clean energy, I want to ask you about, do you think that the current crisis reinforce that there are certain views that strategic risk of fossil fuel dependence, and could a faster global transition to clean energy help reduce the likelihood of such geopolitical flashpoint in the future, sir?
The transition to the clean energy transition in 10 years ago was driven very much by political decisions 10, 15 years ago, for the simple reason that clean energy was expensive, so it needed strong political support, financial support, subsidies, and so on. This is not the case anymore. The clean transition is driven by competition and by low prices. And because of that, what is happening in Venezuela, and also what is the position of Donald Trump and his administration on fossil fuels, on renewable energy, will have a very limited effect on the energy transition and everything related to energy transition. I mean, this is also everything related to energy efficiency, electrification of industry, electrification of transport, electrification of heating. So all these areas are now driven by completely different factors than they were driven before. So obviously in US, quite a lot of renewable energy projects will be delayed, but that will that in a long term, in my view, will basically hurt US because it will be left behind in this competition of the future technologies, which we can see now how advanced both in technological but in volume terms China is, and how ambitious Europe, but also other big economies are in both developing these new technologies, but also deploying them, using them, just because they make much, much better economic sense. So the Trump's position on clean energy is basically not a very good news for the US technological advance, but I don't expect that it will have a major impact on the global energy transition.
Thank you so much, sir, for your time and speaking with us.
Thank you.